Hi, everybody. This is Tattoo Consciousness. I'm here with Plant Pukes, right? That's how you say it.
Plant puke, yeah.
Yeah, Plant Puke. Will you introduce yourself, where you work, and what your style is?
My name is Sophia Bruce. I am currently based in Chicago, Illinois, but I learned to tattoo in Nashville. I've been in Chicago about a year. And I recently opened my own little private studio called Good Mood Tattoo about a year ago.
Awesome. Is it just you working at your studio, or do you have anybody
Yep,
else currently?
just me, just a little private studio.
How did you end up deciding to make your own studio, instead of working at a shop?
I moved here to work at a shop that I ended up
Hmm.
not liking. And yeah, kind of just like accidentally right place, right time. I think being in a new city, I was hesitant to move to another shop and ended up not liking it. And there was a studio space like near my house. So kind of just like right place, right time. It
Hmm.
wasn't necessarily planned, but it kind of felt like all signs were pointing for me to do that as it was something I wanted to do down the line anyways. So yeah, kind of like accidentally worked out.
What are the pros and the cons of just having your own space? Because I know a lot of artists, like at the shop that I currently work at, we have like 10 artists.
Oh
So it's
shit.
great to bounce ideas back and forth on each other, but I totally get having a private studio. Some days I come in and I just want to like be alone. I'm very
Yeah.
introverted, so I get it. But what are your pros and your cons for having a private
I really
studio?
like the flexibility of like having my schedule, and I like what I like. So being able, I'm in my studio right now. So yeah, being able to
Hmm.
like decorate how I like, not have anyone tell me what to do. Mostly the flexible schedule, and especially with that, I've been able to travel. So I've been
Yeah.
doing a guest spot a month since November. I've been doing a different city a month, and so that I feel like kind of fills in the gaps of like missing other people and having coworkers, but I'm also like very involved in like the community
Hmm.
online with people, like a Discord. So that helps me a lot. Yeah, fill in the gaps that of not having coworkers. I
Yeah.
do miss sometimes working with people, but I do think I would eventually maybe like to work with like one or two other people versus
Hmm.
like a huge walk-in shop. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like my clients have also enjoyed since I've moved to a private studio, have enjoyed the more like intimate vibe, and I feel like I can give them my full attention. Yeah, I don't think I want to work alone forever, but I do think, yeah, like I said, for the time being, it's what works. And yeah, I like having control.
Did you have
Most.
any hurdles opening up your own shop? Because I know it's like really difficult and I don't know what the health department is like there, but for here you have to like get licensing and all that. It costs money. You
Yeah.
have to go through a bunch of them coming and looking at your shop, making sure everything's a-okay.
Yeah, here, so this building was already zoned. Um, so that wasn't an issue. If I wanted to get an actual building zoned, that's like the thing where you have to go to like the a meeting with the zoning board or whatever, and
Hmm.
that takes 6+ months. So, because I was looking at actual like big storefronts to try and open a shop with like one or two other people, but that would have taken a lot longer. So, I think I started looking in March last year and I was open by May. So it
Hmm.
only took a couple months because the building was already zoned and I was going to City Hall and calling every day and being annoying,
Yeah.
kind of rushing the process. But yeah, yeah, it wasn't that much work because the zoning was done and because it's so small that it's just me. I just had to like buy enough stuff just for me. And there was already a sink. So I think opening a bigger shop, which I would like to do eventually, I would have to go through zoning and you have to
Yeah.
go through like sink and a lot more furniture and hurdles. And especially like owning a shop. Like here, my studio is a private room in a building, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. So
Yeah.
it's like kind of like a salon suite. So I have a landlord who is responsible. So yeah, it's easier the route I did it, and then I think it will set me up to open up something bigger down the line, and that will
Hmm.
probably be harder.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of your clients from social media since you're a private studio? Like I'm at a private studio, so we don't do walk-ins, so it's all reliant on social media. And what to you are like the pros and the cons of doing social media?
Yeah, I mean, I've only worked at a walk-in shop for a couple months. Like basically since I started apprenticing, I've been kind of at a private studio. The first shop I worked at an apprentice at, we would take walk-ins like if people walked by, but we didn't, it wasn't like a walk-in shop. I've basically been pretty much relying on Instagram for my clients since I started,
Hmm.
which has been, obviously I'm very lucky to have that following and have enough people interested in me. Yeah, it's been a little bit harder since moving to a new city because I've only been in Chicago like a year and a half. Thankfully, I did have enough following and enough clientele to open a private studio, but it's been a little bit slower than it probably would have been if I opened a studio in Nashville before I moved
Hmm.
here. I think it's just slow season in general too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not like above doing walk-ins, but I do think having a private studio and having dedicated clientele has helped me a lot. Yeah, social media, I mean, I think we all struggle with it a little bit. just how important it is. I'm trying to take a step back a little bit. And then when I take a step back, I notice it really impacts my business. So it's kind
Yeah.
of trying to find like the middle ground between relying on it enough, but also like knowing that it's not always the most reliable and being able to get clients other ways too.
Yeah, for sure. Do you do anything on social media? Like a lot of me and my friends, especially because we're apprentices, we'll run ads and stuff for like flash posts and everything like that to gain traction. Do you do anything like that to help you with social media, like any marketing or anything, or you just post?
No, not really, just posts. I feel like I've gotten really lucky. Like I feel like a lot of times people ask me like, "Oh, what did you do?" And I can't really pinpoint it to like one thing. I don't think I've ever had. I've had like a couple posts do well, but I haven't had anything like go viral that then
Hmm.
gained my following. It's kind of been like just accidentally like over the years I've been tattooing. I've tried to run ads and they never really worked that well. Yeah, I made one reel and I felt weird. I'm not a kind of person that likes filming myself really.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just post when I post. I try not to think about it too much. I know there are like tips and tricks and
Hmm.
people are very much into the algorithm. It definitely is better when I'm posting more consistently. So that's been my issue is like I haven't been posting as much, so it's been a little bit slow.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of it comes from community. Like I get tattooed a lot by people in my community and a lot of my friends. Like I feel like most of my following comes from clients and friends and other tattooers sharing my stuff.
Hmm.
I recently got one of my tattoos got shared on like Tattoo Snob or like one of those like big
Holy shit, for real?
yeah, and
That's
that helped a
awesome.
lot. And like none of that's just like stuff that kind of accidentally happens. Or
Hmm.
like when I get tattooed by people, they'll tag me. Like I feel like that I don't know. I feel like a lot of it just comes from like connections and I do a lot of guest spots so that when I guest they tag me. It's kind of been like more
Yeah.
organic, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah, sometimes I like wish I could pinpoint it to one thing or like was a little bit more savvy, but I feel like it's just kind of been genuine and organic,
Yeah,
which
that's
I'm
awesome.
very, very lucky for. Yeah.
Yeah. So with you saying you guest spot like every month, I'm doing my first guest spot in Colorado in July. I'm from
Oh shit.
Colorado originally, but I'm a little anxious for it and also like being out of my own space. Like, how do you make yourself comfortable when you do guest spots and like properly like bringing everything? Do you drive usually? If you fly, like how do you prepare yourself for that?
So yeah, getting into tattooing, like one of the things I was most excited for was traveling. Um, I did my first guest spot probably March or like 2021, like right when things were kind of opening and COVID was like better. And I just reached out to me and my friends were going on a road trip, and I reached out to a random shop for my first guest spot in Virginia that I didn't know anyone at. And I apprenticed at an all-female shop.
Hmm.
So my first time ever working with a male tattooer, like, was at my first guest spot. So I was really anxious and I was pretty new. I was about a year into tattooing and I like threw up the morning up. I was so anxious.
Oh no.
But just doing, I feel like the first one, then it gets easier. I feel like for the most part, I haven't had any bad experiences. Like even shops where I like didn't know anyone or like, I don't know, it's still been fine. I think a lot of it comes down to like obviously clients, if they book with you, they're there for you. So having like clients who are there supporting you, even if like you're anxious at the shop, I feel like as soon as I start tattooing, it's fine.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the times it's kind of like just open-ended invites. So people reach out to me and are like, oh, if you're ever like in this area, let me know. Yeah, planning is hard. It's been a lot of logistics, especially traveling like once a month since like November. But I have a good routine down. At first, I drove for like all of them. Being in Nashville, we were driving distance from a lot more places.
Hmm.
And the first time I flew for a guest spot was I think when I went to LA like last 2 years ago. And yeah, once you do it, you get used to it. I feel like there's not really like tips or tricks. Every shop is dynamic is different. Just making sure you have all your stuff for the most part. I mean, I feel like most shops are really helpful. I've forgotten stuff and everyone's really nice. Yeah, I feel like I've just gotten my packing down and I've been lucky enough to have like a decentish following to the point where like pretty much every time I've guessed it, I've been booked. So that's also been good. Is like knowing I have those clients there once I start tattooing, it's good. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people get stressed about booking guest spots, but sometimes it's like you're just having fun. Like regardless, make the best of it, talk to the other tattooers, ask questions, enjoy the shop. I think I've been enjoying it more because I work alone, so it is fun, like I said, to have that like walk-in busy shop experience for a little bit, but then be able to come back to my private studio. But I feel like I learned a lot more on guest spots. That's kind of why I've
Mhm.
been doing this. I feel like I've learned more guesting than I did during my apprenticeship. Helps fill in the gaps. And yeah, I don't know. Guesting makes tattooing feel really magical, especially when you work alone. But yeah, there's really no tips or tricks. I feel like you kind of just like get used to it as you go along.
Mhm.
But everyone's been really nice so far. I mean, just obviously vet, feel it out and like make sure the shop's not weird or anything. But yeah, having clients that are there to support you, especially in a city you've never been to, is awesome. And I feel like that really is like what makes me want to keep doing it.
Yeah. Have you ever done any tattoo conventions or anything like
Yeah,
that?
I did my first one last year,
Mhm.
like March last year in Chicago. I did the Chicago one with my last shop. And then I did a small local one in York, Pennsylvania that it's called Hocus Pocus. It's like a Halloween themed
Oh,
one.
that's awesome.
The Chicago one is like the second biggest in the US. So that one was crazy, especially for a first
Yeah.
convention. Um, yeah, I think the vibes are good, but it's a little too chaotic for me. It actually just happened again this year, and I was like debating going, but too chaotic. The smaller one I
Mhm.
did was a lot more my speed. I feel like going forward, I would prefer to do like invite only smaller conventions. Yeah, especially guesting versus conventions. Guest spots are way more chill because at
Oh,
least you
yeah.
have your space. I don't know. Conventions are fun, but as far as like actually working them, they're not as fun. I feel like for me or the clients, like I feel like conventions are more like party, get to see your friends kind of thing versus
Mhm.
like, I don't know, actually working. I'd much rather guest in a city, I think, than do a convention. But yeah, I'm not opposed. I haven't done enough. I would really like to try more and maybe find like one or two that I really like and do every year.
Mhm.
There's actually a convention that just happened that's in South Africa.
Oh, that
I
sounds
think
really
it was like,
fun.
yeah, it was last weekend. A bunch of my friends from Nashville went to it and it looked really, really fun. I think I'd
Mhm.
like to do an international convention because I feel like that's like the safest way to guest spot internationally as far as like needing a working visa and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm open to doing more conventions. I don't think I've found
The
the
right
ones that
ones. Yeah.
yeah, and especially conventions versus guest spots. With conventions, you have to bring a lot more stuff.
Mhm.
You have to bring a table, a bed, a light. So it's a lot more logistics, but
Mhm.
I'd be open to doing more. The Philly one is the biggest in the US, and I've been tattooed at it. And that one I feel like is like, I have to do it at least once because it's kind of like the tattoo
Yeah.
convention. But no plans for any right now. I feel like guest spots are kind of more my speed because I get to like, it's more chill.
Yeah. How did you get into tattooing? What brought you into the industry?
I started getting tattooed really young. Like, I got my first tattoo for my 16th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. I was getting like house. I feel like the music and stuff that I was into at a young age kind of always overlapped with like tattoo culture, like pop punk,
Mhm.
hardcore. I feel like I always was drawn to tattoos, even as like a little kid. Yeah, my parents had a bunch of like tattooed friends, and I always like loved hanging out with them as a kid. And yeah, I started getting house tattoos underage in high school, like stick and pokes, blah, blah, blah. And then my mom knew I really wanted to be tattooed and like modified, or like, she knew I was into that shit.
Yeah.
For my 16th birthday, she signed off for me. So in Kentucky, which is about an hour away from Nashville, it's legal with parents' consent. So she signed off for me and we like drove and she was like, as long as you pay for it and like, get good grades and like whatever, I'll sign off for you. And then yeah, I got like maybe 10 tattoos before I turned 18. Like I had like a part-time job in high school and didn't have anything else to pay for. So I spent all my money on tattoos. My mom would sign off and she was like, like as long as you're getting them done in a shop and like this is making you happy and like you're getting good grades, whatever.
Mhm.
So I had a bunch of tattoos before I turned 18. I moved to college in Baltimore. And yeah, I was going to MICA, which is like an art college. And I was originally going to get a printmaking degree. That's what I was majoring in. But I was really unhappy and just like struggling. I had like health issues at the time and dropped out. And I was like kind of talking about tattooing, but I was like freshly 18 and it didn't seem like a goal that was achievable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, my parents kind of encouraged me, not encourage me, but like we're like, if you want to drop out and pursue tattooing, like we'll
Mhm.
support you. Maybe you should do that instead of like spending money on a degree that might not have a job with or aren't happy with. Like, especially art school is really expensive. So yeah, I did a semester of art school, dropped out, moved back home to like pursue tattooing. And then I took maybe like a year, 6 months, where I lived with my parents and I like painted every day and built a portfolio, went around to every shop in town until someone said yes. Basically.
What was your
Yeah, the rest is
apprenticeship like
history.
that you went through?
Um, it was okay. It wasn't like abusive or anything. Yeah, basically, so I had my portfolio flash and I went around to every shop in Nashville till someone said yes, which I'm like, damn, 18-year-old me was kind of, I'm like, I wouldn't do that now. I'm like, I
Hmm.
had balls back then. But yeah, because I think obviously I think we would all do things differently with our apprenticeships. I am where I am. Um, but yeah, because I went to every shop until someone said yes. I apprenticed at a shop that I didn't really know anyone at. It was just like the first shop that said yes, which was fine. It was an all-female shop in Nashville, and it was my mentor and one other person, and then they hired me. Um, and it was chill. It wasn't like abusive or bad or anything. After I got hired, a lot more artists ended up hiring, and it was like a great shop environment and to be at until it wasn't. I would just say it was a little bit lackluster, if that makes sense. My
Hmm.
mentor hadn't been tattooing that long. I think she'd been tattooing like 3 years when she started apprenticing me. So it was just lackluster. Like it was fine until it wasn't. The shop actually ended up closing like the beginning of this year, due to financial issues. There was just a lot of issues at the shop that I guess I couldn't have predicted with it being like pretty
Yeah.
new and run by someone who was newish. Yeah, it wasn't bad or abusive. It was like chill. I think, yeah, like I said, going back, I would much rather have like sought out a mentor whose work I admired or had a relationship with. Yeah, it was what it was. I started my apprenticeship in March 2019, and in Tennessee, you have your apprentice license for a year.
Hmm.
And so my year when I was supposed to get licensed and become a real tattooer was March
Oh
2020.
no. Oh
So yeah, I
no.
think there was just like, I was supposed to get signed off and become a real tattooer
Hmm.
the month we shut down for COVID. So yeah, a lot of it is like timing and stuff that
Hmm.
wasn't necessarily anyone's fault. Yeah, I think I am where I am. I feel like I said earlier, I've learned a lot more from getting tattooed and guest spotting and asking questions from people I admire than I did during my apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like to talk a lot on this podcast about mental health and balancing your social life with tattooing because it's crazy. Like you have to socialize with clients every day. May that be awesome. Sometimes people dump stuff on you because they're, in
yeah.
pain or whatever, or they think you have a good dynamic. So it gets hard because then you go home and you know, you're drained. So how do you balance your social life and your mental health with tattooing?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've been struggling with a little bit more recently. I think social media has had a big impact in that, in really feeling, I guess, really comparing myself to other people and really feeling like I can't ever turn work off. So that's something I've kind of been struggling with the past couple months, and I'm working on that. And like I said, trying to take a step back from social media then impacts my work, so it's like a endless cycle. Yeah, it's been hard. I feel like when I first started tattooing, I was like freshly 18 and just so excited, to be in this industry working long hours. I worked another job during my apprenticeship. So between the two, I would work like 80 hours a week and I'm like, would just go, go, go. And now I'm not like that. Um, yeah, it's hard not to feel burnt out, especially working alone. Um, I feel a lot more socially drained because it is just me and my client. I don't always have someone to like bounce off of or like, if I don't know if something's weird between my client, there's no one
Hmm.
else there to like be a buffer. It doesn't happen a lot. Thankfully, my clients were all really, for the most part, nice and everything. But I do feel like working alone, it's a lot more socially draining because it is a lot more intimate. Yeah, I don't really know. I feel like I go through ebbs and flows of how I feel with like my mental health regarding tattooing. I think a lot of it is like this job is so personal and like tattooing is very much like it's a job, but it's also your life, a
Yeah.
life. But I also feel like working alone, I've been able to like have a little bit better of a work-life balance because I have a more flexible schedule. I don't have anyone that's like making me work these hours or you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a hard question because I go through phases of
No,
like
for sure.
being burnt out and I don't know.
How do you deal
Um,
with burnout whenever it happens to you? How do you get out of that mindset? Because, like, I mean, constantly making flash or custom pieces for people burns you out. I like whenever I started my apprenticeship, all the tattooers around me was like, "Oh, we don't really make art for ourselves anymore." And I was like, "Oh my God, that sounds horrible." It's like I hope that doesn't happen to me. You just got to make time for it. It's hard. You can't make time for it. If you make art for yourself, you're like, I could be making flash or something that could make me money with my
yeah,
business. So it's really difficult. How do you deal with something like that?
taking time off, spending a lot of time with my partner. Um, yeah, I think like I said, social media, it's a lot of like comparison, but I try to remind myself that everyone is at different points in their career and in their lives. And even if you're not making something right now or you're burnt out, enjoy that time, because the longer you take, the better you'll be when you come back, instead of like forcing it. If that makes sense. I feel like I went through a phase where I like was forcing myself to be productive, and then it made the burnout worse because nothing I was doing felt like genuine, if that makes sense. I don't know. I
Mhm.
think just allowing yourself the grace uh to not do anything or not be creative. Obviously, like do what you need to do to like for your appointments or your clients, but like not forcing things. Yeah, I feel like I go through phases, and I'm kind of just allowing myself to enjoy those things and understand. I feel like capitalism and life and money has made it really hard, and I always feel like I have to like go, 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 work, work, work. And so having a private studio, I've been trying to like unlearn that now that I am my own boss, and like my overhead's not as high and I don't have anyone like telling me what to do. But then when I am enjoying myself or taking time off or trying to like allow myself, I also feel guilty
Yeah.
because it's been like instilled in me. So yeah, it is weird. But yeah, I've been trying to take more time off, work less hours a week. And yeah, I also like, as much as I love tattooers and I have a lot of tattoo friends, I also have been trying to find hobbies besides tattoos, or like, I don't know, befriend people that aren't tattooers, or
Yeah.
like outside of work, not only talk about it. Yeah, it's been hard. It's been a little bit easier since moving to Chicago and working alone. I feel like I've been able to like set better boundaries.
I want to talk about also your style. I love your style. I want to know
Thank
what
you.
influences you and how you came up with it's kind of traditional, but it's your own take on
Yeah.
traditional.
I would say like girly
Hmm.
traditional. Kind of just happened naturally. I mean, I don't know. I've always, since I started tattooing, I always knew I wanted to do like traditional. I feel like I'm in a weird phase where I'm like not sure the direction I quite want to go in right now. I'm inspired by so many things that I'm like trying to take all the things I'm inspired by and put them together into my own style. Yeah, girly traditional. I feel like I reference or am I'm inspired by tattooers more than anything. Like my iPad, I have a million references on there. Pinterest. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like girly, funky, traditional. Like Lindsay B is a big inspiration. Heather Hill. Yeah, I feel like I like girly traditional. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just kind of comes natural. I'm inspired by a lot of stuff, but recently I feel like because of burnout a little bit within tattooing, I've been trying to befriend artists who aren't just tattooers, and expand my
Hmm.
references beyond just other tattoos or tattooers. Yeah, I've been consuming like different kind of media, like movies, books, comics, other stuff. I know that's like the root of a lot of tattoos is like, I don't know if you follow, there's like a tattoo origins page, and it shows where like a lot of the like traditional
Oh
flash
no, that
image
sounds cool though. Yeah.
came from. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like
Um,
it just happened naturally, and I try to draw every day. I'm never gonna stop drawing. Yeah.
do you do anything outside of tattooing for yourself, especially since you're trying to like befriend artists who aren't tattoo artists? Like, do you do any paintings or anything, or try to take time for that?
Yeah, these past couple months have been a little bit busy, especially with traveling. But I'm hoping to do more of that in the summer. My friend Adeline, Burger Baby, I don't know if you follow her. We did an art show together in February. And it was like a Valentine's themed art show here. We hosted it in like the front part of my studio building, and we each picked 10 artists that are like our friends or mutuals to send in pieces.
Mhm.
And we had like a gallery and an art show and everything. And I feel like that really like ignited something in me to like, I don't know, have more of a community and be inspired by people who weren't just tattooers. Some of the artists in the show were tattooers, but some were just like general artists. I've been trying to collab with more people. There's a girl in my studio building or studio space who does ceramics.
Mhm.
Yeah, trying to explore different mediums and put my art onto those different mediums. Like I said, it's hard to find time, especially with traveling and drawing for customs and everything, but I'm hoping to take a step back a little bit in the summertime, maybe work like 3 days and allow myself time to work on other projects. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, especially since tattooing I started my apprenticeship when I was 19. That's kind of all the only art I've been doing has been make a drawing that will look good on skin. And
Yeah.
even though I am an artist and was an artist before, now I kind of want to unlearn that, but it's hard to unlearn that and like break the rules of like, oh, this needs to have a black outline. Oh, this like needs to look good on skin. So I want to try and painting and maybe doing other mediums to break out of that a little bit. I took a ceramics class too in my building, and that was really fun to be a little bit more loose. Yeah, I also would really like to get into crochet. I have a rug gun. I feel like I have a lot of ideas for other projects, but not necessarily time. So I think
Yeah.
my goal in the next couple months is to make time for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think a lot of it comes from like having other artist friends who are doing cool shit and collaborating.
Yeah, I think I completely understand that. I have so much unfinished stuff and it just makes me so
Yeah.
upset. I'm like, oh, I could do this and this and this and this, and then I'm like, oh no, I have to draw for next week's
Yeah.
tattoo. I need to make some flash, whatever. I wanted to also ask what are your favorite products to use with tattooing? Like what's your favorite machine and your inks and liners and stuff like that.
I use a Dan Cuban, a Sidewinder. I've been using it pretty much since the start of my apprenticeship. I learned on coils, but didn't really use them very long. So yeah, Dan Cuban Sidewinder for lines, mostly rotaries, but not like a rotary pen.
Hmm.
Um, and then I have this one it's called The Candy from this dude Bane made on Instagram. I think he's in like Serbia. So it's like an interesting, quirky little yellow machine. One of my old coworkers used it and I love that. I use that for shading and I'll use it with cartridges for like smaller fine line stuff. Yeah, mostly rotaries. I don't use
Hmm.
coils like at all. I just have like a handful of different ones. As far as needles, I use a mix of cartridges and needles on the bar. Kind of depends on what I'm doing. I feel like I'm going back and forth between the two a lot.
Yeah.
Black Claw is like the brand I prefer for cartridges, and then I like their bar needles. I also use the Kingpin traditional ones. And then inks, I won like an Eternal giveaway, like when I was an apprentice. And so they gave me a bunch of colors, and I feel like I kind of just like stuck with them because that's what I knew. But I pretty much have Eternal and Solid. Yeah, I feel like especially when I guest, I like to ask a lot of questions and try new stuff. Yeah, I feel like I don't know, it's hard when I work alone too because I don't like if I buy something and don't like it,
Hmm.
I have to use it. It's not like someone else I can share it with someone
Yeah.
else. Or I have like a backlog of stuff already. So I'm like, oh, I want to use this before buying and trying something new. So I try to use new stuff when I guest spot if people offer me. And I'm still figuring out what I like. Um, but yeah, I really would like to get back into coils and buy a set like a liner and a shader and try that again. But there's a lot more maintenance and work with that.
Oh
So
yeah. Do you feel like there's a difference at all between cartridges and needle on bar? Because I know a lot of like needle on bar people are like, oh, it doesn't give that thick, bold line. The cartridges, like, it's just different. I don't know how to
yeah,
explain
I
it.
pretty much only use cartridges for fine line stuff or like small, like 9 and under.
Hmm.
If I'm doing really traditional pieces, I use needle on bar and usually my Cuban. It kind of depends on what I'm doing. Yeah, I feel like I'm still trying new stuff. Cartridges, I feel like it takes a lot longer too. Like with my Cuban, it's a lot easier to just like put stuff in one pass, whereas like using thicker needle sizes on cartridges, I have to like kind of go over it a couple times. It depends on like, placement, piece,
Hmm.
different things for yeah, different things. But yeah, I kind of like a mix. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, I like that you use both because usually it's like one or the other. So I like
Yeah.
that you use a mixture of both of them. I think my last question I have for you is, do you have any advice for women or queer people trying to come into the industry?
Yeah, I would say make art as much as you can. It's so hard because I feel like I got my apprenticeship in 2019 and that was right before COVID and like the big boom. I feel like in the 5 years I've been in the industry, it's already changed so much that it's really hard and everyone's path and journey is different. And even like I said, my journey, I probably would have done it differently. Yeah, don't give up, make art, make connections, get tattooed. I know like apprenticeships are like the right way, but also like you can definitely carve your own path and figure stuff out. I think the most important thing is respect of the industry, of the craft, of your clients, of yourself. And yeah, and just being safe and careful, even if you are doing things the more like DIY and self-taught way, still having that like respect and appreciation and caring about the safety. But yeah, I think mostly just like getting tattooed and making art are the roots of this whole job. Yeah, and don't be afraid, if you're in an uncomfortable situation, or being taken advantage of to run or, speak up for yourself, advocate for yourself. I know it's easier said than done. But yeah, and be cautious of like red flags and people taking advantage of you. I think that's one of the biggest things is a lot of people, especially younger people, go into this industry with like rose-colored glasses and kind of
Hmm.
ignore red flags
Yeah,
because they're
for
so
sure.
excited. Um, but yeah, community building. Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't be here without, fellow tattooers or our clients. Yeah, just respect for the craft, for yourself, for your clients. I feel like there's no really right or wrong answer. I know I get a lot of people ask me for apprenticeships or advice, and it's like, it's so hard.
Hmm.
Because yeah, everyone's journey is different, and we all kind of end up where we're meant to be, even if it is like the weirdest route to get there, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah. No, that was a great answer. I appreciate it. I
Yeah.
appreciate you being on here and making it happen. Will you tell everybody where they can book you, where you're located, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I'm Plant Puke Tattoos on Instagram. My shop is Good Mood Tattoo, private studio in Chicago. I'm guesting a lot. I feel like I'm doing Portland later this week and then LA in May. No other plans right now, but I'm always happy to travel, especially if you're listening to this and want to host me at your studio. Yeah.
So thank you. I appreciate it so much. That was everything.
Yeah. Thank you for
So
talking.
cool.
It was nice to meet you.